The first day of the high-level general debate of the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly opened this Tuesday under the theme, "The Future We Want, the United Nations We Need." Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has denounced conspiracies to commit acts of violence in the lead-up to the December parliamentary elections. Greece announced this Tuesday the resumption of dialogue with the government of Turkey for the first time since 2016. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Speaking on the first day of the high-level general debates of the 75th session of the United Nations General Assembly, the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, noted the impacts of global warming on climate change, especially on vulnerable populations. He also called to neutralize sources of support and financing of irregular armed groups.
For its part, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has made binding commitments to reduce its carbon emissions and to mitigate the effects of climate change. We are determined to do everything we can to ensure the implementation of our climate commitments through the preservation of our forests. In line with my promise and the commitment made during the 74th session of the General Assembly, the Democratic Republic of the Congo has set up a system of school gardens consisting of 1 billion trees by 2023. Peace has not yet been fully restored. Some residual elements of the armed groups from both within and outside the country are still active in the area and are continuing to spread death and desolation. They are attacking not only our armed forces, but also the MONUSCO peacekeepers that provide us with logistical support, as well as the civilian population. We will not be able to neutralize these armed groups unless we eradicate their sources of support and financing from these networks and other backers. I call upon the international community to impose appropriate, targeted and effective sanctions against them.
And addressing the high-level general debates of the 75th session of the UN General Assembly this Tuesday, Angola President João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço referred to the current armed conflicts in the African continent, while calling on the United Nations to impartially interpret the underlying factors of domestic political tensions.
In light of the foregoing, the United Nations should seek to interpret, with impartiality, the underlying factors of the domestic political tensions arising from election processes and assume a position that does not ignore the legitimately established government while strengthening their capacity to intervene in resolving the problems to ensure the normal functioning of institutions. Excellencies,
and also speaking before the United Nations this Tuesday, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari noted the importance of respecting and advancing in human rights, especially gender equality, while reaffirming Nigeria's commitment to combating terrorism in the Sahel region of Africa.
The future we want must guarantee human rights, human dignity, human prospects and prosperity. The principles of leaving no one behind and doing no harm must be expressed through accountability, strategic growth initiatives, and elimination of threats of all kinds. The United Nations has made progress in advancing gender equality and women's empowerment through initiatives such as the Beijing Declaration and Program of Action and the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. The creation of the United Nations entity for gender equality and empowerment of women in July 2010 was an important milestone. Nigeria acknowledges the importance of gender equality and recognizes the critical role that women play in development. In Nigeria, we are still facing violent extremism from the insurgency of Boko Haram and bandits. We continue to count on our strong cooperation with United Nations counter-terrorism bodies and neighboring countries to overcome the terrorists in the Lake Chad Basin and the wider Sahel region.
Meanwhile, Argentinian President Alberto Fernandez noted the importance of solidarity to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic, while also calling for new multilateral alternatives to address external debt restructuring. He also reiterated Argentina's sovereignty over the Malvinas, South Georgia, and Sandwich Islands, including their surrounding maritime space.
In the same spirit of solidarity, we believe that the vaccine produced to prevent the disease that we are suffering from today must be a global public good, accessible to all nations in an equitable fashion. Legitimacy, sustainability, and restructuring through a majority. We call on the international community to continue seeking new multilateral alternatives, facilitating orderly restructuring of debt and ensuring greater availability of resources to apply public policy to respond to the pandemic and to support inclusive growth in their territories, something which Argentina has never stopped calling for. To conclude, I wish to reaffirm the legitimate inherent rights of sovereignty of the Argentine Republic over the Malvinas, South Georgia, and South Sandwich Islands, and the surrounding maritime areas. These are an integral part of Argentina's national territory, and they have been legitimately occupied by the United Kingdom for more than 187 years.
And also speaking before the United Nations General Debate, Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed the importance of freeing the world of barriers to trade, as well as economic sanctions, and underlined Russia's will to contribute to peaceful resolving regional crises and conflicts.
In general, freeing the world trade from barriers, bans, restrictions, and illegitimate sanctions would be of great help in revitalizing global growth and reducing unemployment. There are other critical items on the UN's agenda. The issues of both environmental protection and climate change should remain the focus of joint efforts. The specialized multilateral UN conventions, treaties, and protocols have proved fully relevant. We are calling on all states to comply with them in good faith, particularly in working to achieve the objectives of the Paris Agreement. Dear colleagues, I would like to underline again that Russia will make every effort to contribute to peaceful, political and diplomatic resolution of regional crises and conflicts, as well as to ensuring strategic stability. I would like to reiterate that in an interrelated, interdependent world, amid the whirlpool of international developments, we need to work together, drawing on the principles and norms of international law enshrined in the UN Charter. This is the only way for us to carry out the paramount mission of our organization and provide a decent life for present and future generations. I wish all the peoples of our planet peace and well-being. Thank you.
And we are taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back. Speaking during a video conference with regional authorities this Tuesday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro denounced conspiracies to commit acts of violence in the lead-up to the December parliamentary elections.
Maximum alert, calm and good sense in the face of any situation, maximum composure, absolute serenity and maximum confidence in combat, in the battle and in victory. That is our responsibility. There are always many elements that we handle. Firstly, from Colombia. The government of Colombia of Iván Duque is a government that works with mafias and drug trafficking in its internal policy.
And as part of these plots, President Maduro denounced the training of groups of mercenaries intended to arrive in Venezuela from Colombia in the coming weeks.
Iván Duque is directly involved with the drug trafficking gangs and has positioned the drug trafficking gangs of La Guajira and other places in the north of Santander, among others, to train his group of hitmen and terrorists who intend to come to attack Venezuela in the coming weeks. I have been stressing that no matter how much we denounce the coordinates, with names and surnames, those attacks are not going to stop. We already did so. We spent 6-8 months denouncing coordinates, names and surnames, and they did not stop the armed incursion that set out from Colombia's Guajira and was neutralized by the Operation Negro Primero.
And the Vice President of the United Socialist Party of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, warned about the threats of violence that some extreme sectors of the opposition are attempting to carry out in the country in the lead-up to the parliamentary elections of the December 6th.
We want to alert those sectors of the opposition that continue to speculate and promote violence, and we want to take all measures to reach December 6th in peace, to arrive at December 6th in peace, so that the plans of the right wing supported by the U.S. fail again, and so that on December 6th, the Venezuelans who want to participate in the vote and do so in a peaceful manner.
And Diosdado Cabello also denounced instructions of U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to carry out acts of violence in Venezuela from Colombia. During a meeting of representatives of political and social movements that form part of the Great Patriotic Pole Electoral Alliance, the official noted that Venezuelan authorities have precise information regarding the instructions issued by Pompeo to those who remain committed to destabilization in Venezuela. He noted that Colombia is a country of widespread violence, having reported more than 60 massacres this year, and that the same forces behind this brutality are those that seek to unleash the same violence in Venezuela. He stressed that the social and political organization of the Venezuelan people is crucial in the struggle to prevent these plans from bearing fruit. He also noted the progress of the organization and preparations ahead of December 6 elections and highlighted the courage of the Venezuelan people to confront the unilateral coercive measures imposed against the country by the United States government. Also, the U.S. Treasury Department on Tuesday issued sanctions against 4 Venezuelan opposition politicians in it accused of facilitating efforts by the government of Nicolás Maduro to undermine democracy in Venezuela. According to a Treasury Department statement, these individuals have acted as part of a broader scheme to manipulate the parliamentary elections of December 6 by placing control of Venezuela's opposition parties in the hands of politicians affiliated with Maduro. The move extends to many sanctions against Venezuelan officials to opposition members and comes as opposition forces are increasingly divided in Venezuela between those committed to participating in the elections and those that remain committed to extremist moves to topple the Maduro government, with support from the United States. The United States has reported a new record of COVID-19 deaths worldwide, surpassing 200,000 fatalities in the country. According to the Johns Hopkins University, the balance of COVID-19 deaths reached 200,000, 5 deaths with the infection tally of over 6.9 million cases. That shows that the country continues to be the worst impacted by the pandemic in the world, while hundreds of U.S. citizens continue to die every day. Under current restrictive measures imposed by the United States government, the coronavirus kills 4 times more each day in the country than in Europe. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has expressed concern about at least 9 acts of violence recorded in Bolivia this month, as the electoral campaign ahead of the October 18th general elections intensifies. Our correspondent Freddy Morales has the story.
The United Nations agency reported that it has recorded 9 events of violence related with electoral campaigns. Most of these violent incidents are led by groups of violent civilians who follow former civic leader Luis Fernando Camacho, who had a very aggressive role in the coup in November last year. Then and now he uses the Bible and a rosary.
It is faith, and if in faith we can continue, we will get a new Bolivia. That's why I always say that we ask God to choose the best man so that he can lead this country, and I do not speak about me. He should decide, because I want him to rule this country. May we be the administrators of what he's going to do.
Camacho goes third in the electoral polls. The people most affected by the violence are the followers of the movement towards socialism, former President Evo Morales' political platforms, that remains as favorite in the polls.
They have destroyed our vehicles with stones and wood sticks. That is why we are coming here, to ask for constitutional guarantees and that Mr. Luis Fernando Camacho shows up.
It has also happened in La Guardia, in the town Primero de Mayo. It had also happened in Cochabamba. We certainly request constitutional guarantees.
The United Nations Human Rights Office indicated that the 4 political platforms that led the polls have suffered aggressions. Carlos Mesa, Citizens Community, we believe led by Fernando Camacho, the Front for the Victory of Chi Yong-chong, and the Movement Towards Socialism that has Luis Arce as candidate. After the resignation of the de facto president due to little support, 7 candidates remained in the race, and 6 of them represent the right-wing sectors.
Freddy Morales, TeleSUR, Bolivia.
Thank you, Freddy. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Greece announced this Tuesday the resumption of dialogue with the government of Turkey for the first time since 2016. The Foreign Ministry of Greece said that exploratory talks in the Eastern Mediterranean will start soon in Istanbul. Also on Tuesday, during his speech in the 75th session of the UN General Assembly, Turkish President proposed a regional conference where rights and interests of all the countries of the region are considered.
I would like to repeat here our call for establishing dialogue and cooperation between coastal countries of the Eastern Mediterranean. For this purpose, we would like to propose the convening of a regional conference, including Turkish Cypriots, in which the rights and interests of the countries of the region are considered.
Palestinian National Liberation Movement met this Tuesday with Hamas for mediations over the holding of general elections aiming the end of internal divisions. The leaders of the 2 Palestinian factions met in Turkey's capital Ankara to end nearly 13 years of political and territorial division between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The talks also aimed at presenting a united front to face the challenges of Palestinian causes, mainly President Donald Trump's Middle East plan, as well as the recent normalization of relations by the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain with Israel, which affects directly Palestinian citizens living under its rule in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories. In Mali, hundreds of people marched in the capital Bamako, demonstrating against colonialism as they celebrated 60 years of their independence from France. The protest was organized by the movement France Dégage outside France, which maintains that France still has too much influence over the country. Protesters carried banners against French colonialism and its allies. Some demanded a closer relationship with Russia, and earlier Colonel Assimi Goïta attended a celebration for Independence Day. Goïta will serve as vice president of the transitional government to restore democracy in the country.
We have organized this demonstration to continue the process we have started to get the criminal French policy out of the Malian territory.
Getting rid of France is no small matter, but to succeed we must be united and we must evolve together. If at the same time that some Malians are killed, other Malians are celebrating, it benefits France, which will have good days ahead.
Tanzania and Rwanda have committed to strengthen bilateral and economic ties. The head of the two states addresses trade barriers to create more equal and bilateral relations. Records show that Rwanda imports from Tanzania were over $200 million US, while Rwanda exports to Tanzania were $5.1 million US last year. Hence, the task is to stimulate production in Rwanda so as to make sure the two states attain mutual or equal share of their trade relations. Tanzania Private Sector Foundation has been advocating on the amendment to extend the period of charging value-added tax on auxiliary transport services for transit goods, while for the private sectors, they intend to boost the trade flows between these two countries. And we have come to the end of this news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Laura Palmeiro. Thank you for watching.